All right, hey there, guys. It's Coach Edwards from lacrossegoalietips.com, and I thought I'd do something fun here. So this video is doing really well, and but for all my lacrosse goalies, parents, and coaches, I thought why not do a little commentary on Tim Troutner? All right, obviously had a great season in the PLL. Really, I just love all the stuff that we learned watching a guy like Tim Troutner this year. And what I love about the work that the PLL did was that, we got a lot of these great highlights to get excited, and kids were getting pretty pumped up to play the position. So, for a lot of the parents that are part of our Facebook group at Creating the Lacrosse Goalie of the Future were asking me like, hey, can you do some feedback maybe on what's so good about Tim Troutner? So let's watch. So first thing, I'm just going to say, I don't know Tim, never met Tim. I'm just speaking as someone who's coached goalies for a really, really long time and has worked with elite athletes in a bunch of different sports. So there's, one of the things I tell all our goalies is you're an athlete who plays the lacrosse goalie position. You're not just a goalie, right? So let's go. All right, so I just want to freeze this video for a second because I want to talk about protection for goalies. I want to talk about reactivity for goalies, and I want to talk about, are we coaching the athleticism out of lacrosse goalies? So one of the things that I've talked about for years is that goalies need to first adopt a base athletic stance for them. All right. Now, what happens is at this highest level, okay, you're going to see some very unorthodox traditional lacrosse goalie movement because at this level, goalies are all about foundation, right? The strength of their foundation of their feet into their ground that allows them to exert force from the ground up through their hands and move their stick in front of the ball. Now, in this situation, what's really cool is that Tim adopts kind of like this street hockey goalie style, and I don't know if at this point he's trying to protect himself from getting hit in the balls, but so you're going to see the knees cave in, and if most coaches saw a high school kid doing this, they would just be like, no, that's wrong, and I disagree. We need our goalies to be athletic first, and then from that, they're going to have a foundation with which to move. Okay. So he gets his hands on that one. It's probably going to hit him in the shoulder. Just a really tough shot to save from that close, right? This one too. So what's great about this one, right, is that the shooter comes in and basically the head's high, the shoulders are high, but the hands drop. And so I'm a big proponent that an advanced goalie learns how to read the entire picture. They're not reading the shooter because that's not the best way to describe it. Because if you take a young goalie and tell them, okay, listen, you want to read like where the shoulders are going, where the hands are going, they will totally get faked out. Okay, they will totally get faked out by that. Although for a lot of high school goalies, for a lot of high school teams, the shooters are not nearly this creative as to what just happened right here, right? So he comes in high, he's looking high, eyes are high, but those hands drop. And so what's cool here is that Tim Troutner fires out a leg. Okay. Now this is a kick save. One of my questions for my goalies is like, how often do you practice a kick save? Probably never. Okay. And part of that is because I believe that our goalies are grossly underprotected. Across the sport as a whole, I believe that it's a problem for growing the game of lacrosse because we don't have enough kids who really feel great about being in the cage because it hurts. Now, at the pro level, right, guys are getting hit with the ball, but there's a level of understanding, there's a level of protection. It still hurts, right? And I've talked to professional goalies who have had to have surgery in their legs because of they've busted arteries, things like that. That's not cool, or busted veins. But in this case, he fires out a leg here because why? The best thing to get on the ball in this case was his leg. He's not going to get his stick there that fast. He's going to get his foot there or get his shin or whatever this hit, and then that's a save. So one of my questions for you as a young goalie or a young parent, or parent with a young goalie or a new goalie or coach is that does your goalie feel protected enough in the cage to make a save without protection? Because there's a thing called pain with a purpose, right? Tim Troutner's, in this situation, he's excited, he's pumped up, he's making a save for the team. Pain in a game feels different than pain in practice, right? So we got to understand that. There's another look of that last save we were talking about where he kind of bent the knees. Let's just back this up a little bit and let's just talk about the shooter here. So this is Rambo, right? So, the interesting thing here, if I can stop it. Okay. So the hardest shot to stop, okay, one of the hardest shots to stop for a goalie is low to high. All right. Any sort of low to high. And from this shot from like 5 yards away, Rambo just rifles it, and probably Rambo is trying to stick it top corner, and he hooks it a little bit and sticks it off his shoulder or maybe the stick. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, probably a little bit of stick, probably a little bit of shoulder, right? Great save nonetheless. And then what Tim Troutner's athleticism allows him to do is now get balanced right off of that save, right? So now he's balanced right there, okay? And gets that rebound that hits somebody in front. But he's balanced enough then to just get to the end line. And one of the things that, let's just talk about this real quick. As a goalie, right, you got to know the rule for so if the ball, who's ever closest to the ball going out of bounds, it gets possession, right? So a lot of times a goalie will make a save or see a ball hit somebody and take a weird deflection or whatever, and they're the one who's going to have the best chance to beat everybody to the end line or the sideline. I've even seen goalies run on a rebound that went off a crossbar, run out to basically the bench. And win the loose ball, all right? So that's what's great when you're athletic and you're balanced, you can do those sorts of things, right? I love this save, okay? I love this save because what happens here is that as a goalie, as a shooter comes down either wing, it's really important to understand, well, what hand do they have the stick in, okay? And then I think this is Thompson here, if I heard that right. But so righty shooter, right, going to come back to his right hands, all right, so you know that. But because that angle is so tight, right, and so if we take a line from the post out to the shooter, basically Troutner's left foot is going to be on that line. And then also his right foot is going to be just off that post. But again, if you took a line from the post out to the ball, his right foot would be on that post. Now, I believe that the reason as goalies we have adopted this wide stance is really two parts. One is it's kind of like driving a golf ball in golf. The wider your stance, the more strength you can get through rotation. Now, professional golfers went really wide kind of in the 90s and the early 2000s. They've kind of brought that in a little bit. But lacrosse goalies have adopted this wide style to really get their hands to the ball from a really solid foundation. The second thing about it is that it allows a goalie to know that on certain angles, right, that their feet are the widest point where this ball is going to go. Any ball outside the foot is going to go wide, but any ball inside the feet, they've got to get a stick on or drop to it with their knees, right? And that's the progression of the goalie. That's what's going to change the game is more goalies dropping to their knees. And you see guys like Tim Troutner doing that here. Trevor Tierney spoke about this way back in the 2000s. One of the greatest goalies of all time. If you don't know him, look him up. You should know your goalie history, right? But what Troutner does here, which is great, is that he knows, okay, as a righty shooter, that this guy basically has a couple spots to shoot at, and that's it. Primarily because Troutner's a lefty, right? The eyes of the shooter will see up top, like basically to Troutner's right, between his right ear and the post. He'll also see between his legs. So what happens is the closer that this shooter gets to the cage, the higher the hands go, the more difficult it is for him to now bounce this ball. Because if he tried to bounce this ball, he would have to do it at such a crazy angle that most likely it would hit the goalie, or it would bounce down and up into the goalie. So as this shooter gets close enough to the cage, that option goes away. So as a goalie, we are basically condensing the cage behind us, knowing what the shooter has to see and what they don't. All right. And that's why as this player gets closer and closer to the cage, Troutner knows that he's really only got upstairs, and then he stuffs him. Right. So that's a beautiful kind of fast-tracked thinking, but goalies need to understand it's almost like a poker player. Like that when you watch ESPN and you see poker players go, they say like, oh, this player, this guy has got an 80% chance of hand of winning, right? Now, this is cool because if you watch this slowly, okay, so Miles Jones just runs through everybody, okay? He's just a tank, man. But I want you to watch the end of this shot. So Jones takes that with his, basically it's like a backhand. He comes at it righty, but then switches around and kind of goes like basically backhanded with his right hand. Question I have for you is, how many times have you practiced that in practice? Now, probably never. And one of the things about lacrosse goalie, about the sport of lacrosse, is that players can shoot from all over, and the net is 6x6. Like, it's big, it's massive. The shooters can move their stick like super quick. It's very different than hockey, where the puck is always going from it's always going from the ice. Typically, I know we've got some lacrosse goals that were scored this year in hockey, and that'll continue to go. But for the most part, right, lacrosse all over the place. So a player can go, like Jones, can be shooting from his right hand and then basically switch angle of attack by like 6 feet, right? That completely changes angles. So you might not necessarily be able to practice that, but I do encourage all my goalies to spend some bit of time every practice doing something creative, practicing creative shots. Shooters really love this. And then goalies develop this kind of interesting language of goaltending. Like they imagine if you speak a language and all you ever speak is like, how can I get to McDonald's, right? And then one day you need to order at a fine dining restaurant. That's basically what happened just here. Jones just threw like a fine dining shot at Troutner, and he was able to answer that question, okay? So this is a great shot. This is that save, right? And Jones probably wishes he had it back a little bit, because he did shoot it kind of just at Troutner. But at Troutner being a lefty and Jones being a righty, Jones knows as he's getting closer to Troutner, his angles are coming down, and he tries to go backhand. Didn't probably get as far of a shot over to Troutner's right as he would have liked, but still a great shot, okay?
Trevor Baptiste, we'll see him tomorrow. Brendan, Ryan, back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks to Trevor.
Again, just really nice athletic on that bouncer. Now, so here's the thing. Let's so I've got a couple controversial takes on lacrosse goaltending, okay? Because I've been doing this for a really long time. But let's talk about this. First and foremost, like Troutner's setup. So Troutner is just slightly offset, right? So offset goaltending, really, really love that, because we've been talking about this for years now. A lot of high school kids, high school coaches don't really understand how to adopt this. But the idea is this. You're more capable of stopping a ball to your stick side than to your off stick side, okay? It's just simple geometry, simple math. If we're trying to make saves with our stick, then we want to give ourselves the best advantage to do that, all right? Now, what's interesting here is that he's still very deep, okay? So, and that's fine in this case. So, but watch his hands move. Watch his hands move first. So people think that a goalie is stepping to this ball. They go like, wow, look at the lateral, like the step that he made. And old school coaches that really haven't really come along will talk about like stepping to the ball. And the proper way to talk about this is moving in front of the ball. This is the hardest shot to stop, right? And so Troutner fires his hands over, and that momentum caused by his hands, right? Plus, then the push off from his left foot causes him to drive down to the ball, and he actually collapses here. There's no step. A lot of people think like, wow, this is a great step. No, he's on his knee, right? Now, what I love about this is that he's basically sacrificing himself to get in front of the ball, but it allows him to get his hands there to make this save. Now, in another video, I'll show a save that he didn't make in the All-Star game when he was taking shots with his right foot, but we'll get to that later. So this is just awesome. All right. Boom. All right. So off stick hip, off stick low, when we are driving the stick across our body, that creates a tremendous amount of momentum and rotation. So this is an incredibly athletic move that takes a lot of flexibility. So if you are an inflexible goalie, you're not going to make this save. And so one of the things that I encourage for all our goalies to be doing is getting more flexible, getting more mobile, getting more athletic, so that you can make saves like this. And this is great. So a good push off on the left foot. There's still a push off, but there's not necessarily like a step and an adjustment step, right? There's just a collapse, just getting down into the space, right? I talk about saving the space, not the ball. He gets down there though, and he gets a piece of it and is able to drive the rebound. Another one. right? Good save there. Same shot, right? Same shot placement. Another one. Oh, end of the quarter. So this is when I first saw this save, when I first saw this outlet pass, I was like, oh, this is horrible. But, it's just like the end of the quarter, and he's ditching this. But this is a good example of what happens when you don't really have your feet planted. Right? Throwing on his back foot, sails it high. It's all good. Great save there. Now, this is one, okay, so this is one where, we're going to give credit to the goalie, right? As goalies, we're going to give credit to the goalie. But this is not a well-placed shot. This is basically stick side high right there, right? So, but the key to this, what's really important to me for you to understand is that there is a level of when you're getting shot on by a shot this hard, okay, you can have a tight grip on your stick. However, there is a level of sensitivity that a goalie at this level shows. For all the young goalies out there who want to have like a fishing net for a stick, and then they can't throw a ball further than like 20 yards, right? You need to develop soft hands in order to be able to withstand this sort of rebound. But most importantly here is look at the direction of the stick. All right. The bottom hand is slightly out in front of the top hand, but the top hand isn't necessarily stabbing at the ball. It's not coming out at the ball. It's coming up. Like there's a pane of glass here. It's coming up. And that allows Troutner to basically haul in a ridiculously hard shot, right? And not give up the rebound. Now, there's a good bag in his stick too, I get it, but he has the strength then to make a decent pass with it, which a lot of young goalies, they go for the deep pocket, but then can't make a good pass. Now, so one of the parents inside of our Facebook group commented on how this was a bad rebound, and I just want to show this real quick. So there are some shots. So huge, big shot coming. The thing with the technique of this shooter is that Troutner probably sees the stick head the entire way, unless he's screened by this defender. All right. Now, what I want to see from a defender at this point is less of a slash on the hands here, and more of a lead with a poke check to the cuff. And because if you can land the poke check into the cuff of the glove, you're going to make this shot go wide. Whereas a lot of times a slash doesn't always do that. So there comes the shot. Again, they're picking him on off stick hip. They're really looking for it. Got to notice this well-placed water bottle just inside the goal line. Just saying. But again, coming to your off stick side where you're now rotating that stick over, he catches this ball right off the throat. And it bounces out. Okay, as far as I can tell, it's off the throat, right? Sometimes that's going to happen, right? You're not going to catch every ball right in the middle of the stick, and that's fine. Your team, and like, what's up with this dude though? Like, really? Thanks for playing, right? Thanks for your help. So, right, but we need to rely on our defenders to also help with rebounds. One of the things I see with all the goalies that I work with in the year when I do goalie audits for them every month is that a lot of, like, especially high school defenders, when that shot's taken, they're just still like kind of hanging out. A defense has to completely rotate and turn and look at the goalie, because if there's a rebound, the defense has to be on it, right? That's what they're there for. It's not all about the goalie to suck up every single ball. They're going to give up some rebounds, right? But also, too, the D wants to look at the goalie to know, did he save it? Because if he saves it, and now we can all get on our horse and get clearing really quickly. So this is another one. So end of the shot clock, right? End of the shot clock. Let's watch what happens here. So here's the ball. All right, there's the ball coming inside. Now, one of the things that happens is that this is a lefty shooter, right? They don't have the stick in their right hand. So because this player is so close to the crease, there's a couple things that they could do. Sure, they could shove it. They could do an underhand shot, like they could shovel it. They could do they could do a behind the back, or like a wraparound. But what's going to happen here is that Troutner's going to come off his line, and basically stuff this guy. And that's a well-timed play here, right? And by coming out, this shooter ends up throwing it off his shoulder, as opposed to if he had stayed back, it probably would have gone in far post. Okay, so this is where one of the things that I preach is that goalies, the lacrosse goalie of the future, is going to be more of a ball blocker than just a ball catcher. Okay, so that's really important to understand. So here, there's a level of anticipation, there's a level of understanding of what's going to happen, where this ball's going to go, where this ball's going to end up, and the base athleticism allows Troutner to get his shoulder on it and make the save. What we got to notice here is just the reactivity here. This pass is like, there's no time here. Most like high school kids would probably catch this ball, cradle it. This defender is stuck, like he's got the ability to get his stick on this elbow to disrupt this, but he doesn't. And Troutner, because he's coming from his left post, okay, let's think about the timing here for a second. Pass comes from basically goal line, just behind goal line, side left, up to top left, right? Troutner's coming off his left post. Because this shot comes so fast, this player is looking far side. Troutner also being a lefty goalie, right? That he knows that odds are this shot is going far post, and he's anticipating this. Boom. And it just gobbles it up, right? So you've got to know, these are levels of the game of lacrosse. These are layers that's really important to understand. Like, okay, what is the shooter going to see? What is the shooter going to anticipate they've got open? Where do I think they're going to go? Then you read and react and you explode, but you also, in your head, you kind of know, all right, there's an 80% chance this shot is going far post, right? There's a 20% chance this shot is going near post, all right? And as a lefty goalie, there's probably even less of a chance they're going to go near post because they don't see net there, right? So shooters under pressure look for open net and they go for it. That is just a law. So something to think about, because this is a great save.
Troutner comes up with a save on Snyder. Nearly 12 minutes without a goal before this run. That pass comes through and
so let's just think about this for a second. So ball's coming around from X, right? Or it's actually so this is a short stick, all right? So at this level of lacrosse, guys can pass over the crossbar. Like at really good high school levels, that can happen to collegiate levels. This can happen, but at the pro level, you're going to see a lot of this creativity. And so what's interesting here is that number 9 here goes for the pass over the back of the crossbar, just as Troutner's coming to the post. So I teach my goalies, like, listen, that you want to basically come to this near post as that player is coming kind of to an imaginary line from the pipe back to just kind of inside the restraining line, right? But Troutner at this point is like mid-step. So this pass couldn't be more perfect, but it misses the first guy. It misses the first target, right? It misses this guy, right? And now Troutner's like, well, wait a second, where is it? It gets picked up and backed up really beautifully, right? Side right. Now, but watch Troutner. He's like a hockey goalie. And that's something that drives a lot of lacrosse coaches nuts. And it's something that I've been saying for years, that don't worry about it. Like, you don't have to stand like a perfectly erect lacrosse goalie. You can adopt more of a base athletic reactive stance. If you're stiff, you can't do this. But if you come at it, you know what? You're going to throw a little English on it, like they say. Like, you're going to put a little pizzazz, right? He's going to put a little style. But he's going to come out low, and he's anticipating. And I love how far off his line he is here, right? Because he just gobbles this thing up. Right? He just gobbles it up, and he takes it probably with the ball. Yeah, he takes it with his knee, takes the inside of his leg, and now he's got the ball. So don't fear being unorthodox at times. However, that doesn't give you permission to just waste all sorts of technique, because when you're a young goalie and you're and I say, like, going into college age, like, you're learning how this all works. Up until that point, you really need to understand kind of technique and how to move your body efficiently. Now, here's an interesting one. So ball goes just slightly behind goal line. And Troutner's like he's really kind of committed to this. I see a lot of goalies doing this, and I don't fully understand, because there's no need to cut this off because if the pass goes across the front of the goal mouth, it restricts you. It just creates more distance for you to have to move, right? And if this guy makes a wraparound, what I'd rather see is that his right foot be like about 45 degrees. But again, he's moving quick. Sometimes things get a little sloppy. It's all good, right? But watch this, right? So there, now he comes back with that right foot just slightly and makes the save. I'm not sure if this ball was actually going to go in, but great reactivity there. But if you think about it, right, just let's look at this again, right? Now, some people would say like, oh yeah, but he was totally in the right position for this shot. And you know what? I don't disagree with that, but for a college goalie watching this, for a high school goalie watching this, you're going to get away with more if that foot's just a little further back, because that's where his foot actually ends up. Boom, right? So it comes back. I would rather see the goalie be there to begin with in a proper position, in a good position. I don't say proper, that's not the right word, but in a good position to be able to react to that shot. But also if the pass goes across the front of the crease, he can then take a good one good step and be there, whereas this takes 2 good steps to be there, okay?
Della and a shot that is fought off, I believe, by Troutner. Gives it off to Rambo. Wide open look for Kelly. And Troutner
again, eat it up.
And Troutner comes up big again.
So here's one of the things that this is a better look at this, right? So all right. So now again, pretty direct, right? But if this player comes around and tries to shoot from here, he's in a really good position. The foot could probably be like, maybe an inch or two, if we're going to nitpick, an inch or two closer to the goal line, right? But who's counting? It's no big deal. The pass comes across, though, and then he's able to, because he's so strong in his leg, and I love how he's loaded up on the left foot, that left shin is vertical, but he's not leaning into the post. He's there, but his weight is on his left foot, ready to explode to his right. Now, you could probably get away with a little bit of just moving the stick head a little bit towards the inside. I see a lot of high school and college goalies wasting their stick head outside the post, okay? Outside the post. Now, in this situation, it works out okay, but if this player was to just kind of make a wraparound and go top, far corner, those are extra inches that we have to move, right? So if we tighten it up just a little bit, bring that stick inside the goal mouth, then we've just increased our chances to make a save if this player was to shoot. Now, the player makes the pass across. It's one big step, right? But then he gets a little hung up here and then a shuffle. This is all about body position. This isn't about, this guy makes this incredible stretch and stuffs it, right? But Troutner gets his right foot there, okay? So what happens here is a lot of goalies take too many steps. They take a step out and then they shuffle back, and they would never make this save. Because he's strong enough to basically fire, this is almost like a 2-footed move. You're firing off the left foot, but you're also firing back with the right foot and then getting the right foot in front of that space. And that's exactly how he makes this save, which is awesome. And then gathers the rebound. Boom. Right? So one of the things that you should do as a goalie in practice is, and you don't even have to be in a net to do this, you just have to maybe mark out like a 6-foot, a spot here and a spot there, and work on moving across the goal mouth. Now, if your team never sees shots like this, you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time doing it. But if your team is giving up a lot of these backdoor passes because your defense is worried about maybe a guy on the crease, they lose track of that man on the backside, then what you can do is work on this firing across. And for a young goalie, or goalie especially is not as strong, if the ball is side left, you're going to want to have that right foot. You're going to want to have that right foot a little further towards the middle of the field, right? So not so much here, but just a hair back, right? Because then that allows you to make one smooth move. And he actually makes a little bit of a stutter step here, but it works out. One thing I want you to know is that just because it works out doesn't mean it can't be better. Like I see a lot of high school kids, I'll work with them. I'll make a suggestion, and they'll go like, "Yeah, but I saved it." I'm like, "Yeah, but you saved that one, but I know of a million other balls that are going to get by you because of that technique," right? So even as a professional goalie, we can always look at making things a little bit better, and that's just a small thing, but you never know. That the next time this shot happens, that player could be catching it just a thousandth of a second earlier, making that shot, and because the foot's not there, we don't make the save.
On Jay Carlson at 12-11 here, approaching 3 minutes to go, and Troutner with his 16th save of the afternoon and a quick
So,
Sexton to burn
16
off.
saves in this game. This is cool. All right, so let's just talk about this for a second.
Sexton to burn
Okay. So, this player
off. Jay Carlson,
is running.
12-11.
Okay. This player is running away from the center of the field, right? So this is not really an alley dodge as such. Like an alley dodge would be coming down the hash marks. This player's hips are pointed towards the corner, and every coach will tell you that this causes a reduction in velocity, right? And so so at the pro level though, this guy's still ripping it. So don't get me wrong, right? But what we can learn as a goalie in this case is that this type of shot, probably 9 times out of 10, starts like at the hip or at high and stays high, right? Because it's ridiculously hard to get the hips around and get the shoulders around to change this with much velocity, right? So he comes around and that ball's going high. So this is kind of hard to show, but these are things where you start to learn shooter tendencies, right? So the stick starts a little bit low, comes back up, but it's going high, right? And, you know, how many times have you seen high school teams with the nets open and there's balls out, they're ripping high to high. There's other things involved here too, like there's players in front of the cage. This shooter doesn't want to necessarily hit any of those. And so all those things add up to, right, where's this ball going to go, right? And thank you, Mr. Defender, for just getting out of the way at the last moment, but Troutner gobbles it up anyway. So on this shot, one of the things to talk about is the idea of saving the space. Okay, so as goalies, you know, we get very nitpicky. We think like we gotta pick this little tiny ball out of the air, and that's a really stressful position to be in. You know, I remember when I was a young goalie and I would watch like college level goalies or pro level goalies, and they're sucking up like low shots or bounce shots, and they're just making these really easy saves, and it's just like, wow. And I remember stressing out over that. But then I realized as I got better as a goalie that playing the position was more about a feeling and more about getting to the space where you think the ball is going to go. And from there, you're going to give up some rebounds to start, but over time, you're going to make saves. But the primary thing is that we get something in front of the ball, right? We get something in the space where we think the ball is going. Now, what's interesting about this is a Tic Tac play, and the shooter comes, he's moving, which is great, but Troutner is already in position, even when the ball gets there, which is fantastic. Again, the feet are nice and wide so that basically he knows that if the ball goes low, he's dropping, and he's going to make that save. Anything outside of his feet is going to go wide. He also knows, right, this is great stick position, that while the shooter may see the space off his left hip, right, inside the short side pipe, the stick doesn't have a very good chance of getting there. All right. So this player is going to throw one quick fake, but he knows this defender's coming, right? Knows the defender's coming. But the odds of this shot, where's the shot going to go? If he doesn't see the hands drop, he knows it's going to come high, and then he gets in front of that space, and he does it with his head, which is really, really cool. Boom.
Rambo! Troutner with the mask makes the save.
Smack. Right?
Reeves thwarts on winner with a shot.
Same thing there.
Troutner shut it.
All right. So I'm going to leave it here for now. I talked a lot about these first 2.5 minutes, but you know what I'll do is we'll probably come back with another part 2, maybe even a part 3 as we go. But huge shout out to Tim Troutner and the season he had. There's a lot of great stuff that goalies can take away from this, and really it all starts with athleticism. Your athletic ability is going to allow you to make more saves, all right? Fast hands are great. You know, we've seen a lot of big goalies that are slow, but they've got fast hands. They make good saves. But this is why goalies like Troutner make the All-Star game, and it's something that every goalie can learn from. All right, so I'm Coach Edwards, lacrossegoalietips.com. Leave me a comment below and let me know what you thought of this. If you got some other links you want me to check out, drop them in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers.